Fred Rogers opened the letter with shaking hands. It was written in crayon. Pink crayon. The handwriting was unsteady. Like the person writing, it didn't have much strength left. Dear Mr. Rogers, my name is Emma. I am 7 years old. I am very sick. The doctors say I don't have much time left. I watch your show every day from my hospital bed. You are my best friend, even though we never met. I have one wish before I die. I want to meet you. I want to tell you that you made me happy when everything hurt. Can you come see me? I know you're busy, but I don't think I have very long. Love. Emma. At the bottom of the letter, in adult handwriting, was an address: St. Christopher's Children's Hospital, Philadelphia, room 304, and a phone number. And a note from Emma's mother. Mr. Rogers, please don't feel obligated. Emma doesn't know I'm writing this address. She doesn't want to bother you. But if you could, if there's any way, she doesn't have long. Maybe 2 weeks, please. Fred Rogers sat at his desk and cried. Then he picked up the phone. 3 days later, Fred Rogers walked into room 304 at St. Christopher's Children's Hospital. No cameras. No crew. No publicity. Just Fred and a little girl who was dying. What happened in that room over the next 2 hours, no one would know about for 20 years. Because Fred Rogers never told anyone. Not his wife. Not his staff. Not the press. He kept it secret. Because some things aren't meant to be performed. Some things are meant to be private. But Emma's mother kept a journal. And years after Fred died, she finally shared what happened that day. This is the story of the letter Fred Rogers hid. The visit he never publicized. The promise he made to a dying child that cost him everything. And the reason why, even on his deathbed, Fred Rogers said it was worth it. Every moment was worth it. Emma Carter was born on March 15, 1973, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She was a perfectly healthy baby. Big eyes, loud laugh, endless energy. Her parents, Michael and Sarah Carter, thought they were the luckiest people in the world. Then, when Emma was 5 years old, she got sick. It started with fatigue. Emma, who never stopped moving, suddenly wanted to nap all the time. Then came the bruises. Small ones at first, then larger. On her arms, her legs, places where she hadn't bumped into anything. Then the nosebleeds. Sudden and severe. The doctors ran tests. Lots of tests. The diagnosis came back on a Tuesday afternoon in October 1978. Acute lymphoblastic. Leukemia. Aggressive. Advanced. Emma was 6 years old. The oncologist sat down with Michael and Sarah and explained what this meant. Chemotherapy, radiation, hospitalizations, pain, so much pain. And even with all of that, the prognosis wasn't good. Maybe a year. Maybe 2 if they were very, very lucky. Sarah Carter asked the question every parent asks, but no parent wants to hear answered. Will she suffer? The oncologist was honest. Yes, she will suffer. I'm so sorry. Emma spent the next year in and out of hospitals. The chemotherapy made her violently ill. She lost her hair, lost weight, lost the energy that had defined her entire short life. But she never lost her spirit. Even on the worst days, the days when she was too weak to get out of bed. When the nausea was so bad she couldn't eat. When the pain was so intense she cried for hours. Emma tried to smile for her parents. I'm okay, Mommy, she'd whisper. Don't be sad. The hospital became Emma's world. Room 304 was her home. The nurses were her friends. The beeping machines were the soundtrack of her life. And every afternoon at 4 p.m., Emma watched Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. The hospital had a small TV in each room. Most kids watched cartoons. Fast, loud, colorful shows that distracted them from the pain. But Emma only wanted to watch Mr. Rogers. He talks to me. she told her mother. Not like I'm a baby. Like I'm a real person. Sarah would sit beside Emma's bed and they'd watch together. Fred Rogers putting on his cardigan, feeding his fish, talking about feelings. It's okay to be sad sometimes, Fred would say on the screen, and Emma would nod. I'm sad sometimes, Mr. Rogers, but you make me feel better. On particularly bad days, days when the pain was unbearable and Emma couldn't stop crying, Sarah would hold Emma and whisper, "What would Mr. Rogers say right now?" And Emma, through her tears, would whisper back, "He'd say it's okay to cry." That crying helps sometimes. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood wasn't just a TV show for Emma. It was a lifeline. It was the one thing that made her feel normal when everything else in her life was about being sick. By the summer of 1980, Emma's doctors were running out of options. The cancer wasn't responding to treatment. It was spreading faster than they'd anticipated. The oncologist sat down with Michael and Sarah again. "We can keep trying," he said gently, "but I need you to understand that we're past the point of cure. We're managing pain now. We're buying time." "How much time?" Michael asked, his voice breaking. "Weeks, maybe a month or two." "I'm so sorry." That night, Sarah sat beside Emma's bed and watched her daughter sleep. Emma's breathing was labored. Her small body was so thin. The cancer was consuming her from the inside. Sarah took out a pen and paper, and she wrote a letter asterisk. The letter arrived at WQED Studios on a Tuesday morning in late July. Fred Rogers' assistant, a woman named Margaret, opened the mail like she did every day. Hundreds of letters from children, drawings, thank you notes, questions. This letter was different. It was written in crayon. And it was heartbreaking. Margaret read it once, then read it again, tears streaming down her face. She walked into Fred's office and handed it to him. Without saying a word, Fred read Emma's letter. Then he read the note from Emma's mother at the bottom. He sat very still for a long moment. Then he picked up the phone and dialed the number. Sarah Carter answered on the second ring. "Hello? Mrs. Carter, this is Fred Rogers. I received Emma's letter." Sarah started crying immediately. "Mr. Rogers, I'm so sorry. Emma doesn't know I added that note at the bottom. She would be so embarrassed." "She doesn't want to bother you, Mrs. Carter," Fred interrupted gently. "She's not bothering me. When can I come see her?" Sarah stopped crying. "What? When can I come see Emma? I'd like to visit her, if that's all right with you." You want to come here? To Philadelphia?" "Yes, I can be there this Friday." "Would that work?" Sarah couldn't speak. She just nodded, then realized he couldn't see her. Yes, Friday would be..." "Mr. Rogers, are you sure?" "It's a long drive from Pittsburgh, and Emma is... she's very sick. She doesn't look like other children anymore. The cancer. Mrs. Carter, I don't care what Emma looks like. I care about Emma. I'll see you Friday at 2 p.m. Fred Rogers didn't tell anyone where he was going that Friday. He told his wife Joanne he had some personal business to attend to. He told the studio he was taking the day off. He got in his car and drove the 5 hours from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia alone. He didn't bring a camera crew. He didn't call the local news stations. He didn't arrange for publicity photos. This wasn't for the show. This wasn't for his image. This wasn't for PR. This was for Emma. Fred Rogers arrived at St. Christopher's Children's Hospital at 1:55 p.m. He walked up to the reception desk in his regular clothes cardigan. Yes, but also jeans and sneakers. He looked like someone's grandfather, not a television personality. "I'm here to see Emma Carter. Room 304. The receptionist looked at him, then looked again. Are you Mr. Rogers?" Fred smiled gently. "Yes, but I'd appreciate it if you didn't make an announcement." I'm here as a friend, not as, well, not as anyone famous. Just as a friend. The receptionist nodded, tears already forming in her eyes. Room 304 is on the third floor. Elevators are to your left. Fred took the elevator up. His hands were shaking. He'd done meet and greets before. Hundreds of them. But this was different. This wasn't a healthy child excited to meet their TV hero. This was a dying child who had asked for one last wish. Fred Rogers said a quiet prayer in the elevator. Please let me say the right things. Please let me be what she needs. The elevator doors opened. Fred walked down the hallway to room 304. He stood outside the door for a moment, gathering himself. Then he knocked softly. Sarah Carter opened the door. When she saw Fred Rogers standing there in his cardigan, she broke down crying. You came, she whispered. You actually came. Of course I came, Fred said simply. Sarah wiped her eyes and stepped aside. Emma's awake. She doesn't know you're coming. I didn't want to tell her in case something happened and you couldn't make it. I didn't want her to be disappointed. That was wise, Fred said. He walked into the room. Emma was lying in the hospital bed, propped up with pillows. She was tiny, so much smaller than Fred had imagined. Her head was bald from chemotherapy. Her skin was pale, almost translucent. 4 lines ran from her arms. Monitors beeped quietly beside her. She was looking out the window, watching birds on the ledge. Emma, Sarah said softly. Someone's here to see you. Emma turned her head, and when she saw Fred Rogers standing in her hospital room, her eyes went wide. Mr. Rogers? She whispered. Fred walked over to her bed and sat down in the chair beside it. Double quotes. Hello, Emma. I got your letter. Asterisk. What happened over the next 2 hours? No cameras captured. No journalist documented. No audience witnessed. It was just Fred and Emma. And her parents, who sat quietly in the corner, watching through tears. Later, Sarah Carter would write in her journal what she remembered. Asterisk. Fred didn't treat Emma like she was fragile. He didn't use that pitying voice adults use with sick children. He talked to her like she was a real person, like her thoughts mattered. He asked her about her favorite episodes, about which puppet she liked best, about what she wanted to be when she grew up, even though everyone in that room knew she wouldn't grow up. Emma told him she wanted to be a teacher. Like you, Mr. Rogers. I want to help children feel less scared. Fred looked at her with such tenderness. Emma, you're already doing that. Just by being brave the way you are. You're teaching everyone around you how to be strong. Emma started crying. But I'm not strong. I'm sick. I can't even get out of bed. I can't do anything. Fred reached over and took her hand. His hand was warm, steady. Emma, strength isn't about what your body can do. It's about what your heart can do. And your heart is one of the strongest I've ever seen. Emma looked at him. How do you know? You just met me. Because you wrote me a letter. Even though you're hurting, even though you're scared, you reached out to connect with someone. That takes incredible courage. That takes a strong heart. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Emma said something that broke all of us. Mr. Rogers, are you sad that I'm dying? Fred didn't lie to her. He didn't say, you're going to be fine, or let's not talk about that. He looked her right in the eyes and said, yes, Emma, I'm very sad. Because the world is losing someone special. Someone kind and brave and thoughtful. And that makes me sad. But you didn't even know me before today. I know you now. And knowing you makes me grateful. Even though I'm sad about what's happening, I'm grateful I got to meet you. Emma smiled. It was the first real smile I'd seen on her face in months. Asterisk. Fred stayed for 2 hours. He didn't just sit and talk. He did what he always did on the show. He made it interactive. He made Emma part of it. He pulled out a Daniel Tiger puppet from his bag. He'd brought it. He'd planned this, and he did a puppet show. Right there in the hospital room. Just for Emma. Daniel Tiger asked Emma questions. Emma answered, her voice weak but animated. For a few minutes, she forgot about the pain. She forgot about the cancer. She was just a 7-year-old girl playing with puppets. When it was time for Fred to leave, Emma looked panicked. "Are you coming back?" she asked. Fred was quiet for a moment. He didn't want to make a promise he couldn't keep. But he also didn't want to lie to her. "Emma, I live in Pittsburgh. And you live here. So it's hard for me to visit often. But I want you to know something." He leaned closer. "Every time I do the show, I'm going to think about you. Every time I talk to the camera, I'm going to imagine I'm talking to you. And every time I say you've made this day a special day just by being you, I'm going to mean you." "Okay." Emma nodded, tears running down her face. "And Emma, you can write to me anytime. I'll write back. I promise. Even if I'm too tired to write much. Even if it's one sentence. Even if it's just your name. I'll write back." Fred stood up. He leaned down and kissed Emma's forehead. "Thank you for inviting me into your neighborhood. Emma, you're a very special person." Fred Rogers walked out of that hospital room with tears streaming down his face. Sarah Carter followed him into the hallway. "Mr. Rogers, I don't know how to thank you. You have no idea what this meant to her." "To us." Fred wiped his eyes. "Mrs. Carter, Emma gave me a gift today. She reminded me why I do what I do. I should be thanking her. Will you really write to her?" "Yes, I will. Even at the end?" Fred looked at Sarah with such compassion. "Especially then. Emma won't be alone. I promise you that." Fred Rogers kept his promise. Over the next 6 weeks, Fred and Emma exchanged letters. Emma's letters got shorter as she got weaker. Some were just a few sentences. Some were just drawings. Fred's letters were always long, always encouraging, always reminding Emma that she mattered. He sent her photos from the set. He sent her little puppet drawings. He sent her jokes that Daniel Tiger wanted to tell her. And every week, a package would arrive at room 304. Inside would be a VHS tape. It was a special episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Made just for Emma, not broadcast. Not shown to anyone else. In these episodes, Fred would talk directly to Emma. He'd say her name. He'd answer questions she'd asked in her letters. He'd tell her about his week. Emma watched these tapes over and over. Even when she was too weak to sit up, she'd listen to Fred's voice. "He's talking to me," she'd whispered to her mother. "Just me." On September 12, 1980, Emma Carter stopped responding to treatment entirely. The doctor said it was a matter of days. Maybe a week at most. Sarah called the number Fred had given her. She didn't expect him to answer. It was the middle of the day. He was probably filming. Fred answered on the first ring. "Fred Rogers." "Mr. Rogers, this is Sarah Carter, Emma's mother. How is she?" Sarah started crying. "They're saying days now. Maybe a week. She's not in pain anymore. They have her on morphine. But she's slipping away. Does she know?" "I think so. She asked me yesterday if you'd be sad when she died." Fred was quiet for a long time. "What did you tell her?" "I told her yes, that you would be sad, but that you'd also remember all the happy times." "Was that okay?" "That was perfect." Fred paused. "Mrs. Carter, I'd like to come see Emma one more time, if that's all right, to say goodbye." Sarah broke down completely. "Yes, please. She keeps asking about you. I'll be there tomorrow." Fred Rogers drove to Philadelphia the next day. This time, he brought something with him. When he walked into room 304, Emma was barely conscious. The morphine kept her comfortable, but she drifted in and out of awareness. Sarah and Michael were sitting beside her bed, holding her hands. "She's been waiting for you," Sarah whispered. "I told her you were coming. She's been fighting to stay awake." Fred sat down beside Emma's bed. He took her hand gently. "Emma," he said softly. "It's Fred. I'm here." Emma's eyes fluttered open. When she saw him, she smiled weakly. "Mr. Rogers," she whispered. "You came back." "Of course I did. I promised." Emma's breathing was labored. Each word took effort. "Am I going to die soon?" Fred didn't lie. "Yes, sweetheart. I think so. Are you scared?" "Are you?" Emma nodded slightly. "A little. That's okay. It's okay to be scared. But Emma, I want you to know something." He leaned closer. "You have made this world better by being in it. You have been kind. You have been brave. You have loved people even when you were hurting. That matters, Emma. That matters so much." Tears ran down Emma's face. "Will people remember me?" "I will. I'll remember you every single day." Fred reached into his bag and pulled out Daniel Tiger. "Emma, I brought Daniel to say goodbye too. Is that okay?" Emma nodded. Fred put the puppet on his hand. When he spoke, it was in Daniel Tiger's voice. "Emma, you've been my friend. And I'm so glad I got to know you. You taught me that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you keep going even when you are scared. Thank you for teaching me that." Emma reached out with her weak hand and touched the puppet. "Bye, Daniel. Bye, Emma. I love you." Fred took off the puppet. He set it down on Emma's bed, right next to her. "Emma, Daniel is yours now. He wants to stay with you." Emma looked at the puppet, then at Fred. "Forever." Forever. Asterisk, Emma Carter died 3 days later. On September 15, 1980, she was 7 years old. She died holding Daniel Tiger. Fred Rogers got the call at 6 a.m. He sat in his living room and wept. Joanne held him and asked what was wrong. Fred could barely speak. "A friend," he finally managed. "I lost a friend." Fred didn't attend Emma's funeral. Sarah had told him it was a small family-only service. But he sent flowers and a card that said, "Emma made this world a better place by being in it. I'm grateful I got to know her. She taught me what courage really means." Asterisk, Fred Rogers never spoke publicly about Emma Carter. Not in interviews. Not in speeches. Not in the documentary made about his life years later. When people asked if he kept in touch with children from the show, he'd say, yes, many of them. But he never gave names. He never gave details, because some things, Fred believed, were sacred, private, not meant for public consumption. Emma wasn't the story to tell. She was a person he'd loved, and her memory deserved to be protected. But Fred carried Emma with him for the rest of his life. Every time he said on the show, "You've made this day a special day just by being you," he thought of Emma. Every time he talked about courage, he thought of Emma. Every time he reminded children that they mattered, he thought of Emma. Asterisk. 20 years after Emma died, in the year 2000, Sarah Carter reached out to Fred Rogers one more time. She wrote him a letter. In it, she told him that she'd kept a journal of everything that happened during Emma's final months, and she wanted to share it with him. "You gave my daughter the greatest gift at the end of her life," Sarah wrote. "You saw her, not as a sick child, not as a tragedy, but as a person who mattered. You treated her with dignity and love. And because of that, she died knowing she was valued." Sarah's letter continued. "I never told you this, but the night Emma died, she woke up one last time. She was barely conscious, but she looked at me and whispered, 'Mr. Rogers was right, Mommy. I did make the world special. I was special just the way I was. and then she closed her eyes and she was gone. Those were her last words. And they were peaceful. Thank you for giving my daughter that peace. Thank you for showing her that her life mattered. Thank you for loving her when you didn't have to. Fred Rogers read that letter and cried for an hour. Then he wrote back, "Dear Sarah, Emma changed my life. She reminded me that what we do matters. Not because it's on television, not because it reaches millions, but because it reaches one person who needs it. Emma needed to know she mattered. And I'm so grateful I got to tell her that. She'll always be with me. Every show I do, every word I speak. Emma is there. Thank you for trusting me with your daughter. It was the greatest honor of my life. With love and gratitude. Fred, in 2003, when Fred Rogers was dying of stomach cancer. A reporter asked him if he had any regrets. Fred was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I wish I'd had more time. There are so many children I didn't get to meet. So many letters I didn't get to answer. So many people I wish I could have told. You matter." The reporter pressed, "But you reached millions. Surely that's enough." Fred shook his head. It's never enough. Because every single person deserves to be seen, to be valued. I couldn't reach everyone. Is there one person you wish you'd done more for? Fred thought about Emma, about the little girl with the pink crayon letter, about the 2 visits and the letters and the tapes he'd made just for her. "No," he said finally. "I did what I could. I'm grateful for that." The story of Emma Carter and Fred Rogers remained private until 2010, 7 years after Fred died. That's when Sarah Carter, now in her 60s, published her journal excerpts in a small essay in a regional newspaper. She titled it, "The Visit That Wasn't for Cameras." The essay went viral. Millions of people read it, and millions of people cried, because it revealed something about Fred Rogers that everyone suspected but few had proof of. He wasn't performing kindness. He was living it. The visit to Emma wasn't for publicity. It wasn't for his image. It wasn't for the show. It was because a little girl asked to meet him. And Fred Rogers believed that when someone asks to be seen, you show up. No cameras. No credit. No recognition. Just showing up. Because it's the right thing to do. Today, Daniel Tiger, the actual puppet that Fred gave to Emma, is in the Smithsonian Institution. After Emma died, Sarah kept it for 30 years. Then, in 2010, she donated it to the museum with a note. "This puppet belonged to my daughter Emma during the final days of her life. Fred Rogers gave it to her as a gift. It brought her comfort when nothing else could. I'm donating it so that people can remember. Fred Rogers' kindness wasn't an act. It was who he was when no one was watching." The puppet sits in a display case now, and next to it is a placard that tells Emma's story. Every day, thousands of people walk past that display. And every day, some of them cry, because Emma's story isn't just about a sick child meeting her hero. It's about what happens when someone powerful chooses to use that power not for publicity, not for profit, but for love. Fred Rogers drove 10 hours round trip twice to visit a child he'd never met. He spent hours sitting beside her hospital bed, not filming, not documenting, just being present. He made private episodes of his show just for her, episodes no one else would ever see. He wrote letters. He sent packages. He showed up at the end to say goodbye, and he never told anyone, because it wasn't about him being praised. It was about Emma being valued. That's what real kindness looks like. Not the kindness that gets filmed. Not the kindness that gets applauded. The kindness that happens in hospital rooms when no one's watching. The kindness that costs you time and energy and emotion and gives you nothing back except the knowledge that you showed up for someone who needed you. Fred Rogers once said, "There are 3 ways to ultimate success. The first way is to be kind. The second way is to be kind. The third way is to be kind. Emma Carter understood what that meant. Even at 7 years old, even while dying. She understood Dot because Fred Rogers showed her. He didn't just tell children they mattered on television. He drove to Philadelphia to tell one child, one dying child who wouldn't live long enough to tell anyone else, that she mattered. And because Fred showed up, Emma died knowing she was loved, knowing she was valued, knowing she was special just the way she was. That's not just kindness. That's love. The kind of love that doesn't ask for anything back. The kind of love that shows up even when it's hard. Even when it hurts. Even when no one will ever know. Fred Rogers loved Emma Carter. And Emma, in her final moments, knew she was loved. And that changes everything.